Good day, this is Dimitri Lascaris coming to you for Reason to Resist from Kalamata, Greece on May 19th, 2025. For 15 years, the Freedom Flotilla Coalition has been trying to break Israel's inhumane siege on Gaza. The coalition was formed after the inaugural 2010 Freedom Flotilla mission. That mission ended when Israeli forces killed 9 civilians and pirated flotilla ships in international waters. Since then, I've had the privilege of being a passenger on the Freedom Flotilla twice. My first voyage was in 2018. I joined that mission in Portugal, but was obliged to leave the mission while our vessel was in international waters between Spain and Italy. At that point in the voyage, unfortunately, I developed acute appendicitis and had to undergo emergency surgery in Algiers. The 2018 mission, ended a few weeks after I had to depart the vessel, when Israeli pirates, masquerading as soldiers, forcibly boarded the flotilla's vessels in international waters. These so-called soldiers beat up the crew and forced the crew and passengers to go to Israel, from which they were later deported. My second voyage on the Freedom Flotilla began in the summer of 2023 in Sweden. The plan for that mission was that it would be conducted in 2 phases. The first phase started in the waters off of Northern Europe and ended in Norway in August 2023, 7 weeks before Israel's genocidal rampage in Gaza began. The second stage was supposed to begin in Istanbul in April of last year, 6 months after Israel began its genocidal onslaught in Gaza. However, the Turkish government of Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who routinely condemns Israel and claims to be a friend of the Palestinian people, repeatedly blocked the flotilla's 3 vessels from departing the waters of Istanbul for Gaza. The 2024 mission was also obstructed by the government of Guinea-Bissau. 2 of the 3 vessels that made up the 2024 Freedom Flotilla were flagged by the state of Guinea-Bissau, but in April 2024, the regime of Umaro Sissoco Embalo withdrew its flag from 2 of the 3 vessels, only weeks after having visited Israel and having been described by Israeli war criminal Isaac Herzog as a true friend of Israel. Now, eventually, after waiting for weeks in Istanbul for the Freedom Flotilla to depart, I was obliged to leave Turkey due to other commitments. But undeterred by the obstructions of Erdogan and Embalo, organizers of the Freedom Flotilla came up this year with a plan B. A small vessel named the Conscience was procured. The plan was for the vessel to begin its voyage in Tunisia and then head to Gaza after a stop in Malta. The Conscience was to carry about 30 humanitarians all the way to Gaza. At the beginning of May, however, the vessel was attacked by drones in international waters near Malta. Here's some footage from the aftermath of that attack.
I was part of a group who was supposed to board that boat today to continue the voyage towards Gaza, which is one of many attempts to open up a humanitarian corridor.
And as you will see from the footage, one of the passengers was Norwegian activist Greta Thunberg. Now here to discuss this attack with me is another highly esteemed colleague and passenger of the Conscience. And his name is Thiago Ávila. He's a Brazilian, he's a communicator, internationalist, and socio-environmentalist, as well as a coordinator of Freedom Flotilla Brazil and a member of the steering committee of the Freedom Flotilla Coalition. And he joins us today from Brasilia in Brazil. It's a great pleasure to welcome you for the first time on our program, Thiago. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dimitri. It's a pleasure to be here with you, my brother. We've been together in Istanbul last year as well, and glad to be with you again. Actually, we've been in Lebanon together as well, so now it's another moment to be with you.
Before we begin with the attack itself, Thiago, when the vessel was attacked by drones earlier this month, where were you? Were you on the vessel at that moment?
Actually, I was with the steering committee members that were coordinating the group of 62 people that would board the Conscience by that time. We had 18 people on board and 62 would join. So we were preparing everything to leave in 5 hours of the attack. So we were finishing packing our bags, the humanitarian aid and all the preparations when the moment we heard of the drone strikes.
And so were you actually in Malta at that time with these other coordinators?
Yes. We were in Malta. Most of our delegation was in Malta still, but we will be on board in 5 hours. And then what happened is that after the attack, we maintained the transfer boats to do a rescue mission, to go and to try to provide assistance, because the assistance was non-existent almost from Malta, from the Maltese government, because in fact, they sent a tugboat there and they said to the world that they were providing assistance, Dimitri. But the Maltese government was so unfair to what happened that the tugboat came and the first thing they said to our crew and passengers is that you need to abandon ship. You just come to our ship. And then the crew said, no, we need to fight this fire. And you have huge fire hose system, firefighting system. So just help us. And the tugboat didn't help and stayed for 45 minutes circling the Conscience until it turned on the fire hose system. And then it helped for 2 hours until the fire was out. But then after the fire was out, the tugboat just said to them, now the only assistance I can provide is to bring you on board if you abandon ship. And our crew and captain, and they didn't accept that. So we were in the middle of this situation that the only assistance they were saying they would provide is to abandon ship. We had no information there was another attack coming or not. So we went on other boats, me, Greta, and a lot of other people, to try to pressure and to do any type of assistance and rescue. But we were stopped by the Coast Guard. So the Maltese Coast Guard stopped us from getting to the Conscience. So it was very frustrating. That day was really shocking to see that although we suffered no provoked attack on our humanitarian mission, in European territory, in all aspects of it, and besides being international waters, because it was 14 nautical miles, was not inside the 12 nautical miles, the Maltese government considers 24 nautical miles as Maltese exclusive economic area. So in any aspect as well, Maltese territory as well. And instead of helping us and treating us like a Mayday situation and a humanitarian convoy that was being attacked, they treat us like the aggressors and treated us with a lot of suspicion, threatening to arrest us if we forced our way into the boat to provide assistance. So it was very, very frustrating dealing with the complicity of the Maltese government these days.
So I just want to clarify this, Thiago. Are you saying that the crew of the vessel after the attack requested that the Maltese authorities tow the vessel into the port, and they refused to do that? They basically told you that if you want our help, you have to abandon your vessel in these waters and board our vessel, and we'll take you back to land. Is that what happened?
That's exactly it. After the attack happened, we said, we want to bring the boat into Maltese port. And then they said, no, because you have no flag. That was actually a sequence of events, Dimitri, that led to the attack, because we already had a lot of hard time to depart from Tunisia. Like you said, the humanitarian missions and any Freedom Flotilla mission, they have 4 macro scenarios. We can either be defeated by bureaucratic warfare at port, we can either suffer an interception like 2018 that you were on board that mission, we can either get attacked, like 15 years the Mavi Marmara was attacked and like we were attacked this month, and we can get to Gaza. Those are the 4 macro scenarios. But the bureaucratic warfare is something very common. And we were together in Istanbul last year when we were defeated by bureaucratic warfare. We know how Israel works. And they did the same thing, trying to prevent us from departing from Tunisia. So a lot of police raids on our boats, people arrested. It was very, very hard to leave Tunisia. But eventually we managed to leave with 18 people. And when the boat was close to Malta to pick us up, to pick the other 62 people, the Maltese government had already sent us a warning that our flag was canceled. And we didn't even know that our flag from Palau was canceled. They knew it before we did. And there were politicians in Malta that are saying that the government received an official request from the Israeli government not to allow the Conscience in a week before, not to allow the Conscience into Malta, and if it allowed the Conscience into Malta, not to allow it to get out of Malta. And then, so the bureaucratic warfare was working against us for a long time. And when the attack actually happened, it was 12 hours after the Palau flag officially sent us a message removing the flag. So once it removes the flag, gave a free hand for Israel to bomb our boat, and since it was a stateless boat as well. And the Maltese government, who was aware of that situation, of that confrontational situation against our humanitarian mission, the Maltese government did nothing to provide real assistance in time, other than fighting a fire that was already being fought by our team, and insisting on them to leave the boat, stopping us from the Coast Guard to actually provide assistance with our own efforts that we were doing, and stopping the conscience to enter Maltese territorial waters. So we weren't a stalemate like that. The crew was stranded in Maltese territorial waters, survivors of the attack. We not in Maltese territorial waters, in 14 nautical miles. We were trying to get to our boat, but we were not allowed to. The boat was trying to get into Malta, but was not allowed to. And so we were pressuring the Maltese government to stop their complicity and first condemn the attack, and then to provide a dignified solution for this, to be able to bring the crew home, to be able to switch crews, to be able to fix the boat and do an independent survey on the boat. And none of that was working with the Maltese government. After 3 days, there was a deal with the Turkish embassy as well that managed to repatriate 6 Turkish citizens that were on board. And so they left the conscience and went to the port, and then to the airport, and then to Istanbul. And now, yesterday, finally, we managed to bring home the other 12 people, and the boat is being moved to another port. But this is something that is very disturbing, that it took more than 2 weeks for the Maltese government to even allow us to bring the survivors back home. And until today, they didn't condemn the attack, neither did the European Union. They didn't give us the report of their survey that they did on our boat. They said they would pay for the repairs on the boat, and they didn't do anything for that. And they've been doing like smear campaigns against us, saying that we were not a humanitarian mission, that they were not sure if there were weapons or not on board. So it was very, very frustrating to deal with this. All the other flotillas, this is the boat number 36 that tries to get to Gaza. All of the other missions suffered the same thing. All the other boats suffered the same thing. But it was very frustrating because now it's a new line to attack 1,800 kilometers, 1,800,000 kilometers. So 1,800 kilometers away from Gaza in European territory, and unprovoked attack against a humanitarian mission. This is something that even for Israel is a new thing. And they did nothing. The European Union did nothing about it. So that's what we are at. We are finally leaving Maltese jurisdiction on that and finding another solution, and we are exposing their complicity on this.
So before we talk about what solutions the coalition is planning to pursue, I just want to point out that Palau, the nation whose flag was on the conscience, is a tiny state in the Micronesia region, has a population of less than 20,000 people, and it routinely votes with Israel and the United States in the United Nations General Assembly. It's evidently dominated by the U.S. and does whatever Washington wants it to do at the UN when it comes to Israel, unfortunately. But in any case, I'd like to drill down a little further into what actually happened in the attack. So as I understand it, the attack happened at night, and two drones were launched. Was it at the generator of the vessel and caused a fire? What exactly happened that night, as far as you know?
Yes. Well, after 2 weeks, and after a lot of investigative reporters and journalists managed to do their investigations on that, we found out a few interesting things and very disturbing things. First of all, we found out that at the afternoon before the attack, a Hercules C-130 aircraft produced by Lockheed Martin in the US but used by the Israeli army flew from Israel to Malta and was flying at low altitude over Valletta, the capital of Malta. And at the moment of the attack, the aircraft went exactly to where the boat was, where the conscience was. And after a few minutes of the moment of the attack, this aircraft went back to Maltese airspace and was flying low altitude over Malta again until returned back to Israel without ever landing. So the Hercules C-130 is an aircraft that flies at not only low altitude, but also at low speed enough to deploy drones that attacked our mission. We don't have the type of the drones, we don't have the type of the explosives that were used, and for all of that, we need to do our independent survey because the Maltese government simply was not doing a good job enough to look for stuff. They were actually trying to create smear campaigns about us not being humanitarian mission or carrying weapons or something like this. So we need to check on that. But what we know is that the explosion of the drones, they pierced the upper deck, and then the second blow was very damaged to our emergency generator and to the electric system of the boat as a whole. For a miracle, no one died on this attack, Dimitri, but we really cannot count on that. Either the bombing, either the fire that went after, either all the damages on the boat. This was a very, very critical situation. And we cannot, just because no one died, there were 4 people with minor injuries, some cuts and some burns because they had to fight the fire. But no one died on this incident, but we cannot consider that actually there was no bigger impact because all the humanitarian aid that we were about to board, especially the one we are about to board from Malta, they would be saving lives in Gaza now if we actually made it there. So there was ICJ rulings, for example. There were ICJ rulings, preliminary rulings that said that no country, not only Israel, no country can hinder humanitarian aid from getting to Gaza. So Israel attacks our boats, counts with Maltese complicity, also hindering the repairs and anything else. So this was all part of something that really is taking lives in Gaza now. Gaza has been for 78 days without entering a single bottle of water, a single piece of bread. So famine is at its peak. 300,000 children are at the brink of dying from dehydration and malnutrition right now. So the situation is critical. And they didn't kill anyone on our boat, but they're killing Gaza right now from starvation, which is why the flotilla exists. The focus is not us on our mission. The focus is Gaza and the Palestinian people. So that's why we need to continue doing our mission.
So, Thiago, after the attack, the Freedom Flotilla Coalition called for, and this was reported by the BBC, it called for Israeli ambassadors to be summoned, presumably by the Maltese government, to answer for, quote, violations of international law, including the ongoing blockade and the bombing of our civilian vessel, close quote. And according to the BBC, the same article, the Israeli military said it was looking into reports of the attack. Has there been any official statement by the Israeli government about whether or not it was involved in this attack? Has it denied it? Has it affirmed it? Has it simply refused to say whether it was involved in the attack?
Yeah, as far as we are aware, Dimitri, the Israeli government never denied an involvement on the attack. And Israeli media said many times that Israel did this attack and they didn't deny. So for us, it's enough evidence. Just first of all, we need to understand who has been attacking humanitarian aid convoys, either inside Gaza or outside of Gaza. So under whose interest would this attack happen? And who owned the aircraft that was above the ship at the moment of the attack? So that's why people are saying, and I believe it's more than okay to say that it was an Israeli attack indeed, and not even them deny it. So that we don't have any other element on that. They never assumed it, but they do this with most of the war crimes that they commit. This is another war crime.
And another question I had for you, Thiago, is that organizers of the mission told the BBC that the group, the coalition, had been, quote, operating in total secrecy with a complete media blackout, close quote, to prevent sabotage, yet somehow the sabotage happened anyway. Do the organizers have any idea how the Israelis learned of the mission and the position of the vessel at the time of the attack?
Yeah, they are right with that. We were actually doing a confidential mission. And in 5 hours from the attack, we would go public finally. The moment you go public on this mission was when everyone was on board. And then when everyone was on board and we were out of port where they could not block us in any way anymore, we would just say to the public, we are on this mission, we need your help, we need to get a safe passage, we need to get to Gaza, and we need you to talk about what's happening in Gaza. That was our plan. But the plan was interrupted 5 hours before from the bombing. But we tried to do this confidential mission, Dimitri. It's not because we like, because to be honest, we would definitely need the support from people from the start of our mission. We know how many challenges we face. But the thing is that the bureaucratic warfare they do is very hard on us, and they have complicity of so many governments that we need to have a bit of strategy on that. And so that's why we were trying to do this confidentially. But in the end, we do things confidentially, but we do things legally as well. So we had to file for an exit authorization from a Tunisian port, and we need to say the next port, and it was in Malta. And in Malta, we had to file for immigration to exit the Schengen area with all of our delegation and a lot of famous people that they are aware who they are. And the boats have AIS tracking systems that say where they are in real time. So we have these limitations to do a total confidential mission. And of course, we have their intervention, their surveillance, their spywares and the spy softwares, and so many intelligence systems that go against the people. And of course, they go against us as well. They try to infiltrate our flotilla so many times, and we do our best to have the precautions. But so far, we didn't manage to have a confidential mission yet. And next mission, actually, we're going public because we don't want to have a confidential mission for the public, but that their intelligence system already know, and they're doing all of the smear campaigns and bureaucratic warfare against us anyway.
And at the time of the attack, Thiago, was the vessel anywhere close to Greek waters or Cypriot waters? And if so, did the crew appeal for assistance to the Greek or Cypriot authorities?
Actually, the boat, when the attack happened, the boat made a mayday call for anyone who could provide assistance. So some weird things happened during this attack, Dimitri, because when the Conscience was sending the distress signal to everyone, there was another voice on the radio saying that we are okay, we don't need assistance anymore, and it was not our boat. And in the other hand, there were not many replies. So the Cypriot government was one that said that they got the signal, the distress signal, but didn't do anything about it. The Greek government didn't even respond to that. So, and the Maltese government didn't respond, but the tugboat came minutes after the bombing happened, which was also very weird because we know the Maltese government was aware that Israel was against our mission from the start, that was pressuring them not to accept us. So they knew there was this possibility of something happening, and they knew that Palau had just removed our flag. So this was also very weird. So to be honest, no one responded our distress call. The Cypriot government responded but didn't do anything. And the Maltese government didn't respond, but the tugboat was already there at the moment. So that's pretty much what happened. A sequence of very odd behavior and events.
Right. It's interesting, Thiago, the vessel probably was quite close, reasonably close to where I currently am, Kalamata on the southern coast of Greece. And very recently, there was a huge scandal involving the Greek Coast Guard. A vessel carrying many African migrants was towed by a vessel of the Greek Coast Guard out into international waters, rather into port, and it ended up sinking, killing many of the desperate passengers. So the Greek Coast Guard is notorious, at least in my view, when it comes to responding to calls of assistance from people of conscience, people who are in desperate need of assistance. In any case, my last question to you, brother, is where do we go from here? This has obviously been extraordinarily difficult. Trying to access Gaza, get anywhere close to Gaza during this time of genocide has been an extraordinarily difficult task. Are there plans for further efforts to break this inhumane siege as this genocide is unfolding?
And this is actually very important to say, Dimitri, and thank you for asking this, because we know there's a historical call for a generation to do everything we can. everyone that comes after us will talk about this moment. What were we doing during this horrific genocide? And it's very important that we say that we were part of this global uprising that was doing everything they could against Zionism and against imperialism to stop this genocide. So the flotilla is not more important than all the other solidarity action, that people disrupting armed factories, that people doing boycott, divestments and sanctions, that people going on demonstrations, that people trying to break the media blockade like you're doing here right now, spreading the truth despite their efforts to silence us, and that people doing political education anywhere they go, in grassroots movements, in the cities, in the country, in the forests, in the biomes. So it's all part of the same global mobilization, which is they are all at the service and in solidarity with the Palestinian people, that with their lives, with a huge sacrifice, they are changing human history, because they open the eyes of an entire generation about the system that we live in, that exploits, that oppresses, and that destroys nature, and that allows this type of horrific things to happen because of profit and because of hegemony, and trying to prolong their global hegemony and empires. So the Palestinian people gave us the lenses to see the world as it really is. And people who have been for 20 years doing this, like me and you and so many other people, but also people who just woke up to what's going on, they will never go back to the numbness, to sleep again. So this whole youth, that now we have a social majority in the world that support the Palestinian cause. We still don't control the nation states, but we might force this until we have people's power and until we can actually transform the world that we want to live in. So the flotilla is at the service of this global uprising. And right now we have a new mission. We are just going in a few days. We are going again, because we know that for 78 years, not a single bottle of water, not a single piece of bread enters Gaza. So we are going on a small boat called the Madeline that fits 10 to 12 people, carrying whatever humanitarian aid we can carry all the people that wants to go there, and going to Gaza, not because we think that the few boxes that we'll be able to take will make a difference of food, medicine, and things, for example, crutches and prosthetics for amputated hands and feet for children. We know that this is just a drop in the ocean, but we're going to open a people's humanitarian corridor. We are going as a vanguard to say to the world that it's possible to break the siege, that we need to break the siege. And so, of course, we know there's the risk of a new attack from them, and they have no limits on that. But it's our historical duty to go. And so, like any other mission like that, like the freedom rides against Jim Crow laws in the United States, if they attack a first mission, the next one will go right after, and the other one, and the other one, and the other one, and they will have no way to stop this wave. We are also connected with other initiatives that are going by land, from a convoy from Tunisia by land all the way to Rafah, and for people who are arriving by plane to Cairo at the same time. So we're going by sea, by land, and by air to try to break the siege. It's time for the whole world to wake up, and the time is now. There's no more important moment than now to stop this horrific situation.
Hear, hear, brother. And I wish you a safe passage to Gaza. I know eventually people of conscience will reach that shore, and the Palestinian people will have their freedom. So it's a great pleasure speaking to you today, and please keep me apprised of what's going on. If there are any major developments, we'd be happy to have you back on Reason to Resist to tell our audience what is going down. Thank you, Thiago.
Thank you so much, Dimitri. It's a pleasure being with you, my brother.
And this is Dimitri Lascaris with Thiago Ávila, coming from Kalamata, Greece on May 19th, 2025.